I need a divorce. I can't do this anymore. The text message lit up my phone screen as I lay in the hospital bed, my newborn daughter sleeping peacefully in my arms. The epidural hadn't even worn off yet. My name is Olivia Reeves, and the day I became a mother was also the day my husband abandoned me. I stared at the phone, unable to process what I was reading. My fingers trembled as I tried to call him. No answer. I texted back, "Mark, what are you talking about? Where are you?" Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I'm sorry, I've packed some things. I'll be staying at Dave's for a while until I figure things out." The nurse came in to check my vitals and must have noticed my face. "Everything okay, honey?" she asked. I couldn't even speak, just handed her my phone. She read the message and her expression changed from cheerful to horrified. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "I'm so sorry." I'd been with Mark Reeves for 7 years, married for 4. We'd planned this baby together, or so I thought. 2 days ago, he'd been rubbing my back during contractions, telling me how proud he was. Now he was gone. The hospital discharge was a blur. My mother came to drive us home, my daughter Emma and me. The house felt enormous and empty without Mark. His dresser drawers hung open, half emptied in his hurry to leave. "He'll come to his senses," Mum said, unpacking the baby things. "Men get scared. It's just panic." But I knew better. The look in Mark's eyes the last few weeks, distant, almost resentful. I'd attributed it to new parent anxiety. I was wrong. 3 days after coming home, I found out why he'd really left. A friend called me. "Liv, I don't know how to tell you this, but Mark's been seeing someone for months. Her name is Vanessa. She works at his office." The betrayal cut deeper than the abandonment. While I'd been decorating the nursery and surviving morning sickness, my husband had been building a life with someone else. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep except when exhaustion took over. My body was recovering from childbirth while my heart was shattered into pieces so small I couldn't see how they'd ever fit back together. Mark filed the divorce papers a week later. I signed them without fighting. What was the point? The man I loved was already gone. My daughter became my entire world. Every smile, every tiny milestone kept me going when nothing else could. I learned to function on minimal sleep and maximum heartbreak. By Emma's first birthday, I'd built a new normal. I went back to my job as a graphic designer, found an amazing daycare, and even started going to a single-parent support group. I wasn't happy exactly, but I was stable. Mark paid child support, but barely saw Emma. He'd visit once a month, awkward and distant, like a stranger performing an obligation. I learned he and Vanessa had moved in together almost immediately after our divorce was finalized. I dated occasionally, nothing serious. My heart wasn't ready, and honestly, I couldn't imagine trusting anyone again. My friends urged me to get back out there, but they didn't understand. I wasn't just healing from a broken marriage. I was protecting myself from ever being that vulnerable again. Then, 2 weeks after Emma's 2nd birthday, my phone lit up with a text from Mark. "Can we talk in person? It's important." I stared at those words for a long time before responding. "What about?" "About us, about Emma, about everything. Please, Liv." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near my apartment. My hands shook as I applied mascara. Why did I still care how I looked? This man had seen me at my absolute worst and walked away. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees. He looked thinner, his eyes shadowed with fatigue, but still handsome, still Mark. "You look amazing," he said as I sat down. "What do you want, Mark?" I wasn't going to make this easy. He took a deep breath. "Vanessa and I broke up 3 months ago." I sipped my coffee, keeping my face neutral. "I'm sorry to hear that." "No, you're not," he said with a sad smile. "And you shouldn't be. She wasn't who I thought she was." "And what was that? The woman worth destroying your family for?" He flinched. "I deserve that. I deserve worse." "I didn't come here for apologies, Mark. What do you want?" His eyes met mine, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Tears. I want to come home, Liv. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I want to be Emma's father, really be her father. And if there's any chance at all that you could forgive me someday, I want to try to earn back your trust. The coffee shop seemed to tilt around me. For 2 years, I'd imagined this conversation. In my fantasies, I'd either coldly rejected him or fallen back into his arms. But sitting there, facing the reality of it, I felt nothing but confusion. You can't just walk back in after 2 years and expect— "I don't expect anything," he interrupted. "I know what I did. I know I hurt you in the worst possible way at the worst possible time. I'm just asking for a chance to be in Emma's life. And maybe someday, if you're willing, we could see if there's anything left between us." I stood up, gathering my purse. "You can see Emma. She deserves to know her father. But us? There is no us, Mark. You made sure of that when you walked out while I was still in the hospital gown." I left him sitting there, walked to my car, and broke down completely. The tears I'd been holding back for 2 years came in a flood. Not because I still loved him, though part of me did, but because his return forced me to confront all the pain I'd carefully packed away. Mark began visiting Emma regularly. At first, I arranged for my mother to handle the exchanges so I wouldn't have to see him, but eventually that became impractical. He was good with Emma, patient, attentive, everything I'd once imagined he would be as a father. She started looking forward to his visits, talking about Daddy, in a way that both warmed and wounded my heart. 3 months after our coffee shop meeting, Mark asked if he could take Emma for a whole weekend. I hesitated, but agreed. That Friday night, alone in my apartment for the first time in years, I felt strangely empty. I realized how completely my identity had merged with being Emma's mother. Sunday evening, Mark brought Emma home. She was chattering excitedly about the zoo and ice cream and how Daddy has a big TV. After she was in bed, Mark lingered at the door. "Thank you for this weekend. It meant everything to me." "She had a good time," I said neutrally. "Liv," he stepped closer, "I know I have no right to ask, but would you have dinner with me sometime, just to talk?" I should have said no. Every self-protective instinct screamed against it. But something else, curiosity perhaps, or that stubborn ember of feeling that wouldn't quite die, made me nod. "One dinner, that's all I'm agreeing to." We went to a small Italian restaurant the following Friday. My mother watched Emma, giving me a knowing look as I left that I chose to ignore. The conversation was stilted at first. We talked about Emma, about work, about safe topics. Then, halfway through the meal, Mark put down his fork. "I need to tell you everything," he said, "about why I left. You deserve the whole truth." I braced myself, unsure if I wanted to hear it. "I panicked," he began. "When the pregnancy became real, when we were setting up the nursery, I started having these thoughts. That I wasn't ready, that I would be a terrible father. I tried to ignore them, but they got worse." He described how he'd started staying late at work, how Vanessa had been friendly, then flirtatious, how the affair had begun as an escape from his fears. "When you went into labor, I realized what I'd done. I couldn't face you, couldn't face myself. So I took the coward's way out." "By text," I said flatly, "while I was holding our newborn daughter." He nodded, eyes down. "There's no excuse, none. I've been in therapy for the past year, trying to understand why I did something so unforgivable, trying to become someone who deserves to be in Emma's life, someone who might someday deserve another chance with you." I wanted to be unmoved, wanted to maintain the protective shell I'd built, but something in his raw honesty reached me. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," I said honestly, "but I'm willing to try, for Emma's sake, to find a way forward as co-parents." It was a small opening, but Mark seized it gratefully. Over the next few months, we developed a new routine. Mark would come over for dinner once a week, spend time with Emma, and then we'd talk after she went to bed. Sometimes about parenting, sometimes about our past, sometimes about nothing important at all. I watched him carefully, looking for signs that this was just another phase, that he would disappear again. But he remained consistent, patient. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give. 6 months after our first dinner, Mark helped me move to a larger apartment. As we carried boxes together, I found myself laughing at his jokes, enjoying his company in a way I hadn't allowed myself to do. That night, after Emma was asleep and the moving chaos somewhat contained, we sat on my new couch with glasses of wine. "Thank you for today," I said. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have," he replied. "You're the strongest person I know, Liv. You did everything without me for 2 years." His words hit me unexpectedly. He was right. I had done everything, given birth, raised our daughter, built a new life, without him. The realization was both empowering and sad. "I did," I agreed, "but that doesn't mean I wanted to. Something shifted between us that night. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement of the past, of the pain, of the possibility that there might be a future where that pain wasn't the defining feature of our relationship." A week later, Mark kissed me goodnight after dinner. Just a brief touch of his lips to mine, but it sent a shock through my system. I pulled back, confused by my own reaction. "Too soon?" he asked gently. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready." He nodded. "I'll wait, for as long as it takes." The kiss opened a door I'd kept firmly shut. Suddenly, I was noticing things, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled at Emma, how his hand felt when it accidentally brushed mine, the familiar scent of his cologne. I started having dreams about him, not always good ones. Sometimes I'd wake up in a cold sweat, reliving the moment I read that text in the hospital. Other times, the dreams were different, confusing, stirring feelings I wasn't ready to examine. My friends had mixed reactions when I cautiously mentioned that Mark and I were spending time together. "Are you insane?" my best friend Jenna demanded. "He abandoned you during childbirth, by text." Others were more understanding. "People make terrible mistakes," my coworker Sam said. "The question is whether he's truly changed." Had he changed? I wasn't sure, but I was changing. The wall I'd built around my heart was developing cracks, small ones, but they were there. One evening, nearly a year after Mark had reappeared in our lives, Emma came down with a high fever. I was frantic, unsure whether to go to the emergency room. I called Mark without thinking. He arrived within 20 minutes, calm and steady. He helped me decide to take her in, drove us to the hospital, and stayed by my side through the entire terrifying night as doctors diagnosed her with a severe ear infection. When Emma finally fell asleep in the hospital bed, exhausted from pain and crying, Mark put his arm around me. "She's going to be fine," he murmured into my hair. "You're an amazing mother, Liv." I broke down then, the stress and fear overwhelming me. He held me as I cried, strong and present in a way he hadn't been when I needed him most before. That night changed something fundamental between us, not because he'd done anything extraordinary, but because he'd simply been there. The contrast with his absence during Emma's birth was impossible to ignore. 2 weeks later, he asked me on a proper date, dinner, a movie, the works. My mother was delighted to babysit. "It's about time," she said. "That man has been working so hard to make things right." The date was surprisingly wonderful. Away from the apartment, away from the immediate reminders of our co-parenting relationship, we were just two people enjoying each other's company. We talked about books we'd read, movies we wanted to see, dreams we still had. At my door, he kissed me again. This time, I kissed him back. "I still love you, Olivia," he said quietly. "I never stopped, even when I was too broken and confused to show it." I couldn't say it back, not yet. But I let him hold me, and for the first time in years, it felt like coming home. Our relationship progressed slowly after that. We went on more dates. He started staying over occasionally, sleeping on the couch at first, then eventually sharing my bed. Emma was thrilled to have both her parents together, though we were careful not to make promises or set expectations we couldn't fulfill. 6 months into our renewed relationship, the doubts hit me hard. What was I doing? How could I ever fully trust this man again? What if he left a second time? I pulled back, cancelling plans and making excuses. Mark noticed immediately. "Talk to me, Liv," he said one evening after Emma was in bed. "What's happening?" "I'm scared," I admitted. "Every time things start feeling good, I remember reading that text in the hospital. I remember how completely you broke me." He nodded, pain evident in his eyes. "I know. And you have every right to be scared. I can't erase what I did." "Then how do we move forward?" I asked, tears threatening. "How do I ever trust that you won't leave again when things get hard?" Mark took my hands. "I can only show you day by day that I'm not the same man who ran away. I can't promise we won't face hard times, we will. But I can promise I'll never abandon you or Emma again, not for anything or anyone." I wanted to believe him, but words weren't enough. I needed time. "I think we need to slow down," I said finally. "Keep co-parenting, keep being friends, but take a step back from the romantic relationship until I'm more certain." Though clearly disappointed, he respected my decision. "I'll wait," he said simply, "for as long as it takes." For 2 months, we maintained a careful distance. We still had family dinners, still coordinated Emma's schedule, but the intimate moments stopped. I used the time to think, to consult a therapist, to really examine what I wanted. The answer surprised me. Despite everything, despite the pain and betrayal, I wanted Mark. Not the Mark who had abandoned us, but the man he'd become, humbled, patient, committed. The father who read Emma 3 bedtime stories because she couldn't choose just one. The man who remembered how I took my coffee and brought it to me without asking. On Emma's 3rd birthday, we hosted a small party at my apartment. After the guests left and Emma was playing with her new toys, I found Mark in the kitchen washing dishes. "I have something to say," I told him. He turned, drying his hands on a towel, expression cautious. "I forgive you," I said simply. His eyes widened. "Liv, not for you," I clarified. "For me. Because carrying this anger and fear has been exhausting. Because Emma deserves parents who aren't defined by past mistakes. Because I deserve a chance at happiness." He stood very still, as if afraid any movement might break the moment. "I don't know what our future looks like," I continued, "but I want to find out. Together." Mark crossed the kitchen and took me in his arms. "I love you, Olivia Reeves. I will spend every day making sure you never regret this decision." 2 months later, Mark proposed, not with a grand gesture but quietly, at home, with Emma helping by holding the ring box upside down. It wasn't a traditional proposal, but then nothing about our journey had been traditional. I said yes, not because I'd forgotten what happened, but because I'd learned that forgiveness doesn't mean erasing the past. It means choosing not to let the past determine your future. We married in a small ceremony the following spring. As I walked down the aisle toward Mark, Emma skipping ahead of me, throwing flower petals everywhere but the actual aisle, I thought about the text message that had shattered my world 3 years earlier. It had broken me. But the breaking had forced me to rebuild myself stronger, to discover my own resilience, to learn that while love can hurt you, it can also heal you. If you're brave enough to try again, Mark's eyes met mine as I reached him at the altar. They held not just love, but profound gratitude. He knew what it had cost me to give him this second chance, and I knew that neither of us would ever take it for granted. "Ready?" he whispered, as I took his hand. I was, not because I was certain nothing would ever go wrong again, but because I'd learned that certainty isn't what makes a relationship work. It's the daily choice to stay, to try, to forgive, to love, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. As we spoke our vows, Emma wrapped her arms around both our legs, creating a small, perfect circle. Our family, broken and remade, stronger at the mended places. The text that ended my first marriage now seemed like the beginning of a much more important story. Not about betrayal, but about redemption. About the courage it takes to rebuild what was shattered. About learning that sometimes the people who hurt us most deeply are also the ones who can help us heal. And about the power of second chances, given not because they're deserved, but because love, real love, is always worth the risk.